Hey everybody, this is Garrett Sussman, the head of content at Traject. I am joined today with Andrew Shotland of Local SEO Guide. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Hey guys.
So this is going to be a super casual conversation. Everyone has a unique experience that they're kind of dealing with in the world right now. It's a very uncertain place, but we're going to try to give a little bit of optimism. Actually, I can't guarantee Andrew will, but no, it's going to be a good conversation. We do want to open up for questions and just kind of have this be casual. Everyone's got a lot on their minds right now, but we want to talk about how different businesses are, actual agencies and businesses are adjusting to the situation, as well as what's going on in local marketing. So let's just dive in, Andrew. Before this, you and I were just talking about kind of our respective businesses. Why don't you give me like kind of a timeline of what went on at Local SEO Guide and how you kind of adjusted right off the bat with everything?
What went on? So I guess nothing materially went on until I think Friday the 13th, ominously.
Actually, Duane, jump in here.
Hey guys, there we go.
Hey Duane. Actually, you know what? Actually, let me step back. Actually, a lot of material was going on before that. So I was booked to speak at two conferences in March. One in Austin, the Locology Conference, and one in Atlanta, the Local U Advanced Conference. And I kept putting off booking my flight and hotel, not just because I'm a slacker, which I am, but I was increasingly like, should I even go to these things? As more news was dripping out. And I think in a weird way, one of the most stressful weeks or two of my this year so far was actually trying to decide, was it worth it to go to these things? Because I was contacting, in one case, I was contacting the organizers and they're like, no, everything's great. Like the federal government hasn't said anything and it's not a problem. And I was like, that doesn't sound right to me. Like, and I know they're trying to be defensive and protect their event. And no one had any information, but I found it to be amazingly stressful because I felt an obligation to go to this event for them. Maybe it would be a good thing for my business. Like I shouldn't like not go. At the same time, I was like, I don't want to get on a fucking plane right now.
Right.
Like who does? And I think Duane's posted a photo of himself on Facebook with the N95 on.
Yep.
And I was like, that to me was like, what am I doing? And I emailed both events and I was like, I'll do it virtually. Anything I can do to help, but I have to bow out. And after I did that, I felt so much better. Even though I felt bad for them, I felt like, and in a way, outside of business, but probably in business and with my family, my life, every decision my wife and I have been making about this thing is like, is it going to help us sleep better? And because there's no answer, and if it helps me sleep better, that's the answer.
So this is interesting because that photo that you mentioned, Andrew, I was on a flight to a client meeting, and I put it on in response to an elderly lady across the aisle from me who was coughing, and I was just like, look, it's probably nothing, but you know what? I'm going to put the mask on and just be here for a little while. And I won't lie, flight was 2.5 hours long. At about the 2-hour mark, I took the mask off because I was just like, fuck it, I'm uncomfortable, and that was it.
Right.
But that entire trip made me hyper aware of everything. I went to the store, bought a digital thermometer every day, checked my temperature 3 times a day. I talked to my boss when I got back from that trip, and the two of us agreed neither one of us was traveling anymore. Full stop. Done. No client meetings in person. We were, if the conferences didn't postpone or cancel, we would be backing out. Obviously, we're a big enough company that if I have to eat some travel budget loss, whatever, that's not going to make or break. We can deal with that. And it just came down to I got a call from my boss one day, and he's like, please tell me you're not traveling anymore. And because he and I was giving him an update on all the clients I was engaging with. And I was like, oh my God, no. These are all virtual contacts at this point. He's like, okay. He goes, okay, I thought we'd agreed, right? And he was like he was very much like a parent in that moment, not like a boss subordinate, right? But a human caring for human. And yeah, and I had that moment where I was like, so I reached out to the guys in Austin and I said, hey guys, like, what are we doing with the conference? And 3 days later, I still hadn't heard back anything. And I thought, well, that's odd. Well, they're probably trying to sort through what to do. The next morning, I got the notice saying we're postponing everything. And I was like, all right, you got my support. And so my contact with folks like this has been, look, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to prioritize you as an event over anything else for future dates, because they've got to figure out when their date is in the fall. I would already have things going on in the fall. So I will say no to those other things to support the event that I already said yes to earlier in the year that was subsequently postponed. You know, that's my way of supporting them. And it's like precious little, but like it's all I can do, because otherwise, you know, Andrew, to your point, like my wife and I were talking about this yesterday, right? It's all risk mitigation, risk management. Every moment in my head yesterday, I went out. We needed a couple of groceries, so we said, okay, look, let's combine a bunch of things. I needed to get a smog test done on one of our cars. I needed to go to Whole Foods to pick up some things, and I needed to check my prescription at the CVS. So contacted CVS. They said, we'll have it for you tomorrow. And I'm like, shit. Okay, well, that means another trip this week. You know, and so it's all about that, like that risk mitigation. You know, we left the house with nitrile gloves on, and we came back and we disposed of those. Did I need them? Probably not. When I rolled up to Whole Foods, there's a guy standing outside with cleaner and a rag, physically cleaning every shopping cart, not just the handles, the entire cart, physically cleaning it, and then hands you your freshly cleaned cart. And I'm like, damn, Whole Foods is on it. I go to our other grocery store, same thing. Person outside, carts outside, physically cleaned for you as you take it. And I'm like, yes, okay, this is feeling good. But, you know, and I mean, I'm going to take us in the direction, because I know we've only got, you know, about 23 minutes left here. But yeah, I'm thinking of this in terms of how is this changing patterns of behavior? I'm looking at my own patterns of behavior changing. I don't know if you guys saw Barry Schwartz shared this morning a survey that was on Twitter talking about, have you noticed a difference in your search query volume in relation to the quarantine times? So the first week, the second week, and so on. First week, I think the number was like 44 or 49% of people said their search volume had gone down. And second week, it was 60% said it had gone down. And we're going to see more of this because people's focus has been retrained. We're also going to see a very rapid rise in people saying, well, I want accurate answers. I want definitive truth. I want authoritative information, not just anything, but it needs to come from a source that I believe is trustworthy. And you can earn that trust almost instantly, because people want to have an answer to their questions so they can move on. Like it's I have a need, I'm under pressure, answer my question, okay, next, and they just keep going. And that's the world we're living in right now. And marketers, you know, we have to respond to that.
And that's the interesting thing, Duane, when we're talking specifically about local marketing and trust, and we're talking about Google. And right now, Google My Business is having all sorts of functionality issues. Yeah. I was having an interesting conversation with Phil Rosick yesterday of Local Visibility System. We're talking about, like, is Google's ability, their reputation being hurt right now? Are people going to lose trust in Google? But, you know, the argument was they're too big to lose trust, but we're still dependent on them. Andrew, what types of conversations have you been having with clients about how to handle what's going on there?
I don't think it's changed one bit. It's a screwed up system. It's always breaking. And the fact that there's a catastrophe going on doesn't change that. Maybe it heightens it a little bit, but we haven't heard one different thing from clients other than, can you get this thing fixed? Like,
yep.
That's it.
Yeah. What do you tell them?
And the thing they launched the other day, the COVID-19 posts thing, like, so they're doing some stuff that's not bad, right? And some of our clients are using that.
So here's what I've noticed, because we've gotten a lot of clients who have pinged us saying, hey, feature's broken in Google, what's going on? Is it broken in Yext? And it's like, no, it's a total pass through. Like no one has control over Google other than Google. And let's be clear about this. Part of the reason that the features are breaking is because there's an undue pressure being put on the system. So for whatever reason, the system is not capable of ramping up to today's need from the consumer. Part of that, though, is because you see Google launching the COVID-19 website. You know that a lot of resources at Google have been told, stay away from the campus, work from home. So maybe there's some lost productivity on a product manager's part, and that's having an effect on bug tracking, whatever else. Part of it is that. Part of it is Google is taking resources from one area and deploying them in another area to face a bigger issue. And then when you have something.
I disagree with that.
No, Andrew, I know this for a fact, right? Because this is how Bing operates. This is how Google operates.
Yeah,
everybody's in a vertical.
That have been broken for months. This is way before.
And I'm not going to argue that, okay? So that's another layer on this, okay? So that's a layer of relative importance inside the organization of a feature. So that relative importance means that GMB may only have, I don't know, an arbitrary number. I have no way to know if this is accurate, but let's say they have 10 product managers deployed to manage GMB all up globally. Well, if you take 5 of them out because you're moving them over to COVID-related response products,
I don't disagree. It's got worse, but it's like it was already worse, right?
No, I understand that. Okay, I understand that because that 10 is like 1% of what gets applied to any other feature in the company. So they never had the capacity to build a world-beating system, and now it is being beaten up by the world. So there's a number of different vectors that this failure is seemingly coming from, right? Now, if you're a local business, you don't think of any of this, you don't know any of this, and frankly, you don't care about any of this. All you care about is, wait, you've been telling me for years to drive people to Google reviews, and now I have no way to respond. I have no way to engage with people, and I know, because I'm looking as a consumer, I can still put a review in place. So you've taken the ability away from the business to be responsive, but you've enabled the ability for a 1-star review to now percolate out there. Well, how are you protecting me as a small business owner? Because if
beyond
reviews,
that, though, Duane, I mean, it's like beyond reviews, it's just putting updated information. If you're a business, if you're scared to even update your hours because your business might be temporarily closed, that's scary for a business owner.
Look,
like
I went Friday night, my Wi-Fi router died. So what did I do Friday night when I realized it was dead? I immediately looked for my local cable store. And the 2 that are closest to me, one is 9 miles, the other is 10 miles from me. Both of those are marked closed in GMB. All 7 days of the week had the word closed on them. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess my cable provider is dialing back their locations, saving some of their staff from exposure. Like, I get it. It made sense to me, So I drove 24 miles away from my home one way to exchange my Wi-Fi router. I walk in the store and the lady looks at me and goes, why are you here? And I'm like, I need to exchange my Wi-Fi router. And she goes, no. She goes like, you're from Camarillo. Why would you drive to Santa Paula when we have a store next to you in Oxnard, like less than 10 miles from your house? And I'm like, oh, it's closed. She's like, no, it's not. All of our stores are open nationwide. And she literally called the store and she's like, no, see, they're there, they're open. And I'm like, oh, well, it was a nice drive over here anyhow. And I'm failing me as a consumer of like, what the hell? So back to that question of like, do they take a hit to the reputation? Yeah, they do. But here's the thing, okay? You guys all remember when Apple Maps was walking people into construction sites and like, they were walking off of sidewalks and into holes in the ground. We'll always remember that because it was a funny meme in our lives. But the average consumer today doesn't know anything beyond Apple Maps was just relaunched in the fall and it's fantastic. And they're still using Apple Maps all the time. And so this will be another one of those blip moments where Google's reputation will take a shit kicking from people in the industry and small businesses. But hey, where else are you going to go? And so they will naturally, after complaining themselves out, come back to business as usual with Google. And whether the systems will become more robust and able to handle things, I don't know. I believe there's an obligation to that, though. I believe
But in
there's
the
an
short
obligation.
term, Duane, like Andrew, where
Oh,
do you go? Like Andrew, do you go to Facebook at this point? Do you go to social? Like what are the
So
options?
actually, can I actually change the subject? Because I think
Yeah,
like, I don't know about you, but I don't know, we can dump on Google for forever.
sure.
And
yeah,
to me, that's not interesting. So
yeah.
why don't we talk about, like, I assume the people on the call right now are marketers trying to figure out how to market now or what they do, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know what you should do other than like try to find opportunity. And I can show you one thing that we're doing that might spur some interest. So I just put a link in the in the organizers chat that you guys could. I don't know if everyone can see that, but Garrett, maybe you can share that with people. I don't know if I can.
Yeah,
Um,
make sure it's up there.
but we're right now working with AutoNation, which is like a national car dealership, and we're basically running promotions on their Google My Business GMB posts right now on 600 locations for new services that they developed to help with the virus. So they now have a like a disinfect your car service, and so if
Exactly.
you're and so if you're freaking out about your car and you're searching and you're like, oh, you just search the brand, this shows up and people are clicking and buying the service. Um, so I would like go through your client list or your own product service list and go, is there anything we can reorient to help people right now? And then use this platform to promote it.
There's a
Um,
lot of creative stuff that people are doing. I agree with you. Like in terms of any service industry where you're not going to have foot traffic, like it's almost kind of a repositioning of your business where if you're a lawyer or if you're an after school program creating video tutorials or for any business that can have foot traffic that needs it, and especially the restaurant industry, having a voucher system or a gift certificate program in place and making that accessible to be supported, because I think people want to be able to support their local business even if they can't use the service right now. So you have to be forward thinking. Like the disinfectant of the time is hugely relevant, or to Duane's point, highlighting somehow to your customers that you're disinfecting every grocery cart and that it is safer, at the grocery store. So that's why you should choose that one.
Yeah. The other
Yeah,
thing that we're seeing is um, brands that rank actually for stuff. We have an e-commerce brand that ranks pretty well for hand sanitizer queries, and so as you can imagine, their traffic is going through the roof, but they're out of stock. And so what we're trying to do is encourage them to put up a thing that says sign up, and we'll tell you
yeah,
when we're back in stock because you have all
absolutely.
this through. It's kind of a unique situation, but there's all these little things that you can try right now. Um, I imagine right now, for all of you who are doing link building, if any of you are doing link building, like right now it's probably a gold mine to do link building for clients because guess what? People who used to be like, hey, pay me for a link or whatever, the prices just went way down, right? So there's all
Yeah.
this opportunity out there. It's kind of horrific to even be thinking about it this way because this is a horrible thing happening, but
Right.
it's there's opportunity.
So something that I'll add to this, Andrew, and I love that example of getting my car cleaned, right? Like anything like that right now is it is on one hand gold, on the other hand, you kind of have a responsibility, but it's also just smart marketing, smart brand attachment and engagement. But you need to be thinking, where are we as a society, as a group, as consumers in a week, in 2 weeks, in 2 months? You need to be thinking about that trajectory because like the idea of hey, we'll fog the interior of your car and that will disinfect it. That's awesome. I love it. A month from now, I would expect every car dealership is offering this service on some level because it will just get around, the idea will spread, and those who can will, and everyone will try to exploit it. And it's no longer a differentiator, it's now an expectation on the consumer's part. So where are like taking that logic that Andrew just displayed, right? That creativity, apply that to what is the conversation a week from now, 2 weeks from now, and a month from now? Right now, we're all still talking about being quarantined. We're all still talking about the rise of COVID and so on. realistically, we need to be thinking about, we are about to see a very big change based on the rapid growth of COVID and the impact that the effect of being in an acute scenario or even increased deaths will have on people. It's very sobering. It changes their focus for what they're willing to put their time into. This week, somebody had said the feeling that we're all feeling around COVID-19 is not burnout, it's guilt. Because those of us who are unaffected feel guilty for those who are. And that feeling is going to ramp up. And when humans feel that way, they stop spending money, they get introspective, they stop researching the fun things they wanted in their lives, whether that's going out to dinner or going to a movie or buying a product, because they feel guilty about it. Eventually, we get past that. So you need to be thinking about what is your message and your positioning through that peak and then on the other side, because it's so important, the message. And Andrew, I'm going to take us right back to your AutoNation dealership here, okay? The message, whether it's intended or not, direct or indirect, the message that those dealerships are giving people is, we are concerned about your health. We are looking out for you. And when you apply that to, we're here for an oil change, it's kind of bullshit. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, that's not really looking out for my well-being, right? Like, I'll get my oil change, right? But when you're talking about this scenario right now, there is no other interpretation other than you're looking out for my health. REI did a spectacular job 3 weeks ago. Sent me an email that will make me a member for life with them, and I will always spend more money with them on any product, because they sent me an email that said, hey, you're a member. Just want to give you a heads up, we're closing all our retail stores ahead of coronavirus. Okay, great. But since all our staff are going to be at home now, we're going to continue to pay them as if they were coming to work, because we need to make sure that they can still support their families. Please bear with us during this time. And I was like, I love you. I love you. You're not only looking out for me, you're looking out for your staff. That tells me everything I need to know about the positioning of that business. After that, I will happily pay $20 per set of shoes more for the shoes. I could buy them on Amazon, $20 cheaper. I won't. I'll buy them from REI to support that business. So that Ford dealership, every car that they fog for every consumer, that's an almost guaranteed future sale on another vehicle for that dealership. Because as I mentioned this earlier, as we go through a period of time where relationships are forged under pressure, you're much tighter in your bond. That dealership protecting me from COVID, that's the pressure. That's forming the bond. And so anything you can do, as seemingly simple as it is, that is something that can happen. You know, I had to go out yesterday. I went out and got my smog check done on one of my cars. And, you know, as I'm leaving the office, the owner looks at me and he goes, do you want some hand sanitizer? And I was like, what a simple, elegant gesture. Yes, thank you. I would love some. You know, it was a shared moment. It was personal. It really made me feel good about him. And I came home and gave him another 5-star review, like I did last year and the year before. Yeah, and so it's those little things that businesses can be doing, talking about the cleaning agents that they're using and how they are, how they kill viruses and how they are on recommended lists from the CDC and so on. Talking about the services they're providing, like Andrew is doing with these things. And as a business, use these features, use them. I mean, what's Google going to do? They're going to say, no, you can't promote that way. Nope, they're not going to say that right now. That's not what's going to happen.
When it comes to, so Kiara had a good question. This is a tough one to really talk about, but the hospitality industry.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of businesses that the long-term future, you know, is a lot more murky. And sure, on the one hand, you could absolutely focus on the long term, but have you guys seen any, like, what a marketer for the hospitality industry should be doing in the short term?
I've actually been dealing with a lot of hospitality clients on this. Here are some really quick things that I've seen happening. First off, communications. You have to make sure that you're communicating with your people, with your customer, and keeping them up to date on what you're doing in relation to the latest news. If you are a larger company, so one of the bigger brands, you have a loyalty program, you need to be putting plans in place to preserve people's status and to make sure that they understand that, like, I'm waiting to hear from Delta Airlines because You know, like I'm a Diamond member. So what does that mean now that none of us are flying? Do I get a pass this year? Do I get to carry that over to 2022? Like, talk to me about this, right? And that helps that value quotient. I can't solve for putting people in hotel rooms, but what I can solve for are things like, hey, look, if you've got a restaurant and your staff are in there and you are capable of it, you should be doing takeout like every other restaurant in your area. And you need to have that. You need to be pushing that in your GMB. You need to be on top of it because that has value. That has real value to your community. And it can change people from thinking that you're just a hotel with a restaurant to thinking your restaurant is a member of the community.
I agree. Andrew, what do you think? Have you do you have any hotel clients that you've been working with, or any ideas come up?
Yeah, we don't have any hospitality clients at the moment. I think Duane's idea about the takeout thing, like, yeah, what else can you do, right? It's not like you can book more events, right? So yeah.
Oh, and let's be clear, guys. Like, and there's news. They're talking about this in various cities today. Like New York is looking at taking over hotels for hospital beds. So, like, you want to talk about murky for the hospitality industry, you know, like, I'm pretty sure if you get taken over for hospital reasons, your restaurant isn't going to be in a position to be doing takeout. Like, that's just not going to be an option.
More of a dine-in thing.
Yeah, very much. But in that case, you are still, what are you doing to talk to your email list? What are you doing to grow that? Like, I love Andrew's idea. I've seen this one time. Hey, we don't have the product you're looking for in stock right now. We apologize for that. We are getting more. It's on its way. Give me your email address. I will update you as I get updates on the shipment.
Oh, and let me give you like a real world recommendation. If you have an e-commerce site right now and you have in stock, out of stock schema marked up on your site, pull it off because you're out of stock.
Yeah.
In these cases, you're out of stock. And what we've seen is clients who are in stock for out of stock items, they get clicked on a lot, they fly up the rankings, they go out of stock and they drop. So you don't want that out of stock thing showing in the SERP, even if you are out of stock, because you can get the click.
Do you have it? So also going on the whole retail thing, Andrew, or e-commerce for like boutique agencies. So Lionel wanted to know, do you have any advice for boutiques? Like, the retail industry is taking a beating during this pandemic. What would you suggest to clothing stores or other like luxury items?
To clothing stores, to like what they can do?
Yeah, what they can do to pivot right now.
Okay.
So
sorry, go ahead, Andrew. Okay.
No,
I'll jump
thinking,
up. I'll jump up. So
Okay.
here's what I'm going to recommend, right? As a marketer for those businesses, you need to be talking about the things that are most important to the consumer at this moment. Okay. News report out last week talked about how the COVID-19 virus can survive on hair and clothing for as long as a hard surface, for example, or almost as long. Immediately, what consumers take away from something like that is, oh, clothing in a clothing store can have coronavirus on it. As erroneous as that direct connection is, a lot of consumers default to this thinking. So as a business, again, you're in there with Lysol, you're hosing down your stuff, or what you're doing is you're saying, I'm taking one item of each size, and you're only getting black to try on, and that's it. And then we launder these every night. And as a business, we are making the investment to take profit out of these three products so that anybody who comes in by appointment only can come in one at a time and try these things on and then purchase the product if they want. So you can do things like that if you're able to stay open. As a marketer of these things, that becomes a gold mine of marketable statements that you're making. So you're telling the business, look, get personal. You're already boutique, get personal. Set up specific hours where people can come in so that people feel protected. I'm not going to show up at the store and there's a bunch of other people, social distancing and all of this. It feels like the cleaning you have done applies to me individually, and talk about those things so that the consumer feels like I am mitigating my risk as much as possible, but I still need an article of clothing. I'm working from home. I need a sport jacket because I'm appearing on camera in front of clients. I don't own one. This is what I need to do. What do I do with that? And let me tell you, the numbers coming out of the financial world for a lot of large brands in retail, maybe not directly applicable to this example, but a lot of those brands, they are extended financially. They're at their edge. So we find ourselves in truly uncharted territory. Like Cheesecake Factory just announced that they're not going to be paying their rent on April 1st. So, you know, like we've never been here before. And when we have approached this, it hasn't been on a scale like this. It's been, oh, Cheesecake Factory's not doing well. Okay. And it was just Cheesecake Factory. But it's not just Cheesecake Factory. Cheesecake Factory can't pay their bills because the malls they're in are all closed. And so like there's no way forward for them. And that is happening to a lot of businesses. If you're a small business and you're still able to have your doors open, be very aware of what's going on in your community. LA County has told people, look, if we have to tell you again to close your small business, we will start turning off your power and your water individually. And like, that's massive, right? So in LA County, it's really hard. Like, it's almost impossible to be operating a business right now. In most areas of the country, people are still able to be open, which means you've got to be like, how am I the most compliant, the most supportive? I am supporting my customer to the deepest degree possible. And then you talk about that, you share that, use Andrew's idea, create a campaign and GMB around that and talk about these things openly. And
I feel like that's a good point. And just like every business is so unique and every situation is so unique based on whether they're open, the industry, how big or small they are. I feel like one of the greatest ideas I've had recently, especially if you're connected with your customers, to your point, is communication, Duane, whether it's using a Facebook Live and having a kind of open air conversation like this. You know, if you're in retail, you can talk to your customers and they can ask you directly if something's available. You know, if you're in the hospitality industry, you can talk about, you know, what you're thinking, what your business is doing, make yourself more human. I think there are a lot of ways to get in front of your customers. Madison wanted to know if any of you guys are working with the medical field practices, and obviously there's this kind of your money, your life situation. How about these practices where there are too many people who are trying to get in touch, especially how do you get in touch with an older demographic that might not be digital? Have you guys had any experience there, Andrew?
So I just got the first ever email from my primary care physician, who is avowedly non-digital. He doesn't, because he's afraid of, before this, he was afraid of being stalked by people and unhappy patients. And he sent an email out last night that was like, here's everything you need to know about what we know about this and how we're operating. And he's like, do not call us, call this. Like, unless you're dying, do not call us. And he was very thorough. And so I think short of, you know, sending a letter, if this older person's not digital, that's kind of what you should be doing, is communicating that way. I don't think there's more to it than that.
And it's tricky too, because I feel like even for us as a company, we didn't want to be insensitive with our messaging when it started happening. And there's this instinct to not communicate. And so whether you never have or you're always communicating, I think one of the big things is don't stop. You know, I think the way you message is important. You don't want to come off as insensitive and get multiple eyes on every communication that goes out there. So, you know, if there's someone who would interpret what you think is, you know, an innocuous message, that it does have an element in it that comes out as tone deaf, like share it with people before you send it out, but don't stop communicating. Joshua wants to know any advice for the multi-family housing industry. Which I think is a little, you know, obviously it's specific, but what do you guys say for rent control or any sort of rent related type of real estate where, you know, you might not, you're at the disposal of the corporation's policies. Like you don't have the authority to change the policies, but you're a marketer and you still want to communicate. How do you communicate right now?
I'll be honest, and this is going to sound like a broken record, right? But it is about how are you providing services that are important to the consumer of your product immediately, right now. There are people who are looking for housing right now who are willing to put their name on an application, go through the process because they need a roof over their head. And they are going to be asking questions like, oh, so you cleaned the apartment ahead of me. Great. How did you clean it? How do I know it's safe from COVID? Or they're going to be asking, is anyone in the complex sick? Like, they're going to be asking you. We just launched, Yext partnered with the state of New Jersey, and we launched an answers website for the state of New Jersey to provide data about COVID for the state of New Jersey. And we power it. It's all about COVID. The takeaway from this is the number of questions and the type of questions that we did not forecast that system has seen in the first 72 hours stunned us. And this goes back to Google saying 15% of all queries are brand new. Absolutely, factually true. So that consumer is going to walk into your leasing office and they are going to say, I want to come in here, but I want to know if anyone in the complex is sick. Has anybody been tested for COVID? What's that look like around the neighborhood? Like, they're going to be doing their research on it, but they need to know you're doing your research on it. And then if they feel good about that, they're going to sign, they're going to move in, and then they're probably going to Lysol the entire apartment to death, because that they'll feel that, you know, like, I want to do my layer of whatever it is. And so again, it comes back to you're marketing that message of how I protect you. And of course, you're still going to have a trickle of other messages, why your community is better, the amenities you offer that others don't, things like that. But again, you know, you were talking about insensitivity, and what's going through my mind is tone deaf, tone deaf, tone deaf. Like I have seen this from a couple of massive brands where they addressed Corona-19, and then I'm pretty sure they didn't want to feel like they over addressed it. So they went right back into sales mode. You should come to our store. We've got a big sale on. And I'm like, I should avoid your store. I should never buy from you again. Like, that's my response, because I feel like you're being irresponsible right now. And so it really comes back to that side of the equation, you know? And so then if you can identify the right messaging, now you're back into Andrew's logic, look, how do I use GMB in an effective manner today? You know? So
it's tricky. It's tricky. One more question that I wanted to take from Blaine, and he specifically wanted to ask Andrew. So Blaine's an agency. He says his dental clients are all closed. He wants to do this forward-thinking marketing, but they don't have a budget right now. How would you recommend? How could he potentially do this work now and get paid later, but in a smart way? So maybe not going the full pro bono work, but trying to get some wins for this client, but not like risk his own agency.
So with GMB posts, they're so easy to do. Like, I just did one for a monster brand in 30 seconds. I screenshotted something on their website. I uploaded it to GMB and I wrote a little copy and added a link, and it took 30 seconds and it looks great. So you could probably, if let's say you have 30 clients.
See you, Duane.
You could probably in a couple of hours. Oh, by the way, you could probably in a couple of hours.
Sorry.
Oh, good.
No problem.
Thank you.
Later, Duane.
Thank you.
So you could probably in a couple of hours put together a GMB post campaign that, you know, it probably won't like generate a ton of business, but what GMB posts are good for, if prospects are already searching for the brand, it's a way to convert them. So as an example, if I'm Dr. Smith's patient, I might be searching like I need a tooth cap or something. What am I, or cleaning? I might be searching online, Dr. Smith's hours or whatever, and this thing's going to show up. And so if Dr. Smith has a message, you can put it right there, or a promotion or whatever. Like, hey, do you want to book when this is done, like 3 months from now? I don't know what the right thing is, but it's a super low cost thing. For it, you know, we built a system actually ourselves to automate it. You can't get for more than 10 locations at a time, but we figured out a way around that. And so for us, it costs like pennies per post. So anyhow, that's kind of my recommendation for that particular tactic. So I guess I'd
What
be
about
thinking
from like
about.
the agency standpoint of like what like would you recommend for making a deal with the client of like doing the work now? Like how would you propose any sort of service like contract that, or
I,
do you just not think about it like that right now?
so I think so. Well, just because it's not my situation doesn't mean it's that everyone's. So I think right now this horrible situation is kind of an opening for creating a different kind of relationship with your client if you need to. Meaning, and I don't mean like oh or whatever. I mean like honest conversation. They're freaking out of lay it out. Um, He's deal. Like, we have a contract. They just laid off half the staff. So anyhow, so the I think if you have an idea, you should call the client, like, hey, doctor, whatever. I know it's a shitty time. I think if help to you right now. Here's how. I know you have no money, so I'm going to do this because you've been a good guy and whatever. I have a little budget I can afford to play with, and I guess you could offer him a deal if that's what you think is best for you. But I'd be like, I want to get a chit that I might be able to play later. And maybe you're doing it to be a good guy, but you're really doing it right so that he remembers. And 3 months from now, when he comes back to market, he's like, oh, that guy helped me out when in the shittiest of situations.
I mean, that's
I
the
don't
thing,
think
right?
there's.
It's two prong. It's like you do have your clients who are suffering right now who just need your help, and when they do recover, they'll remember like how you were able to help them, and you might not be able to make money right now on that. If that's not for you, then maybe you look at other industries that do need your help right now that are investing in their SEO and have that sort of budget. But yeah,
So I would be anyone in the cannabis delivery space right now. I'd be talking to them. We have a cannabis delivery client that did 4x business 2 weeks ago than normal, and it hasn't stopped. So yeah, look for clients in that area if you can. Um, think about what are the businesses that are actually thriving in this horrible thing. Like I just read something this morning. It's like, yeah, insurance companies are crushing it right now, and they're licking their chops,
right.
right?
Which is tough when you're an expert like in like Blaine in the dental industry, and that might be your bread and butter. And there are opportunities to help them, but to Blaine's point, they might not have the money right now. So you do have to think if you're running a business that you have to, make some of the right decisions. Brainstorm who's thriving. Okay, Blaine says. So like for instance, the marijuana industry, the grocery industry. I know like Harris Teeter in my area is like hiring 100,000 more workers. I'm sure, whether it's franchises for some of these industries. What are the other ones, Andrew, that you've noticed are doing well? Alcohol, guns, which is tougher for local marketing.
So I think you kind of nailed the ones that I know of that you can see in our data. B2B companies generally were less negatively affected based on search volume that we have access to than consumer companies.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be thinking like, is there a B2B angle here? I would be, contacting those clients you already have and help them think through, like, give some like brain consulting to them of like, well, what can they do? It's not like in the dentist industry, it's not like people are going to stop getting cavities.
Right.
And so they need to make that decision about what they can service, but you should be encouraging them to think through those things if you have the time and they're up for it.
That's the thing, right? Digital transformation, expanding your service. Yeah, it's to your point. It's like digital transformation. It's like all the talk you hear about is like how are the smart businesses going to pivot for the long run? I mean, a lot of this stuff is going to change society fundamentally. So it's like it's hard to come up with the ideas, but how can you actually be forward thinking in terms of none of them know digital necessarily. Like, what do you know that you can educate them, whether it's a voucher program, loyalty program, whatever that might be?
Yeah, I just think it's like, I assume marketing is going to stick around in some way, shape, or form, but maybe a lot of marketing won't. or at least won't for months. And so if that's the case, well, there's no point in being a whatever the next thing you can think of being, and you have, or if you already have client relationships, you should be trying to figure out what you can do to, I hate to say the word exploit, but exploit those client relationships. And you know, if I knew exactly what to do, I wouldn't have it right now. I'd be like doing it. Right.
Right. Well, I was having a conversation the other day with Leodin of Top Rank Marketing, and he was saying, like, you know, there are companies that are doing really well. So it's like for those companies, you can do a lot of, like, you can facilitate the human sort of campaigns that are just helping the other companies that aren't doing well. And then for the, you know, kind of pivot, you know, balance that with the ones that need your help that can't afford it, do pro bono work. You know, like, I think that's, you know, thinking about how you do your own business makes a lot of sense. Well, let's take one last question and then we'll come to the end of this. But Leslie wanted to know if you had any ideas for the entertainment industry. So she says, you know, music lessons in the studio, traveling musicians who have had event dates canceled, that sort of thing. Everybody and their brother are online doing live concerts, but what are some other creative ideas in the music industry that you can do, aside from probably, you know, Leslie, being in the studio making more music? But what do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, you should be doing, so I think that's, I'm saying easy, I don't mean easy, but that's an easy one. It's like, so my friend Susie is a psychic, and she's also a yoga instructor. She is now doing virtual psychic readings and virtual yoga classes. Music lessons, there is no reason. My kids are spending 8 hours a day online in the rooms at school, and then 8 hours a day after online watching Netflix or whatever, because I'm a horrible parent. And so you should be contacting my wife and being like, hey, those music lessons that Audrey can't go to anymore, offering them online. And so book your 30-minute thing now. It won't be her watching Netflix, like, or playing video games. So isn't it great? And here it is. Like, that seems really straightforward. And in fact, is how it should be. Why do I have to drive Audrey 10 miles over to Sally's house for a 30-minute voice lesson that we can do on Zoom, right?
That's great. And for those too, it is a lot about content, right? Is providing resources. Like, you know, your customers right now might be looking online. If you can't provide, they might be looking for, you know, other ways that they can learn and, you know, how they can develop. What?
Let's get back to the dental question. Didn't even occur to me. That's like, or the clothing boutique question. All these things can happen in some way on Zoom. I can't buy the clothes on Zoom necessarily. But hey, I was just telling my wife this morning, I'm like, someone needs to design a quarantine like outfit, because I feel like I'm wearing the same thing I've worn the same, this has been my quarantine outfit. Right?
Same.
And so I'm like, boy, it'd be great if I had someone, a stylist, just do it. So maybe that's your answer. It's like, hey, if I'm a dentist, book a 15-minute video call with me. I don't know that I can diagnose anything, but I can answer your questions. Your teeth hurt? I don't know. And maybe that's something they could do.
It is great. It's been such a pleasure, Andrew. I think you're, you know, a great resource, and obviously on the front lines of SEO, you know, it's a different type of front lines. But before we leave, two things is one, you know, everyone kind of has a cause, whether it's a general cause or in this context, like what someone can do that you would get behind, that you support. So what's your company? What are you passionate about that you'd recommend our viewers and people who watch this webinar support in this time of need?
What am I passionate about? So it's a little early to say. We're actually this morning just had a discussion. So I am on the board of a group called Bay Area Search, which is an organization of Bay Area SEOs, basically professionals. And this morning I was reading something on Facebook of a guy I've known for a decade. I don't even know where he lives, but I've known him for a decade. And he was saying how he'd lost all his clients. And he actually said, if anyone lives near me and has food, please deliver it to me. And so this doesn't happen yet. It's just an idea, but we're thinking of putting together some kind of support network for people in the marketing industry. So I guess follow me on Twitter at Local SEO Guide, and if we end up doing this, then I'd love you guys to support that if you can. But I guess the last thing I'll say is, like, for all of you who have teams, I think supporting them right now is probably the best thing you can do. They all have, we have several team members who have relatives who are nurses and doctors right now that are going through hell. They're all super stressed out, and we're kind of it's harder for everyone. We've been remote forever, so that part's not as hard, but not seeing them stressed out is hard to know how stressed they are. And so we've been trying to do things, we're still operating as the business. So we've been trying to do things to kind of de-stress them. So as an example, Fandango is a client of ours. We gave everyone Fandango Now gift cards last weekend so they could
That's awesome.
Stream to their heart's content. And that's their version of Netflix. If your businesses are still operating as usual, give them a day off. We gave everyone like Monday and Tuesday of the first quarantine weekend off because they're freaking out. So just little things that everyone knows, like we've got your back as much as we can, and de-stress people, I think is that's what I got for you.
That's wonderful. When you do get that website up, send it to me. I will link it when we publish this webinar replay because I want to have everyone support that. So as you guys heard, if you do want to find Andrew, he's on Twitter at Local SEO Guide. They also have a website, localseoguide.com, for the business. A lot of great research on there. They're doing a lot of great things, him, Dan, and the rest of his team. Thank you again for joining us. And everyone, be safe, pay it forward, try what you can. It's all about the little things right now. If you're in a position where, you're doing okay, whether it's, for me, it's like reaching out to your neighbors and just offering to help, while doing social distancing. Also a big proponent of the Red Cross. If you have the opportunity to donate blood, they're going overboard with making it safe. It's not any less safe, and they're trying to get the word out that they desperately need blood and plasma, and that they're taking extra precautions to make it okay. So thank you everybody for joining us. We'll have this on replay on the Traject blog. My name's Garrett Sussman. I'm the head of content at Traject. Thank you again for joining us, and everyone, be safe and be kind.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, everyone.